The silence was the worst part. Not the quiet of a field at night, but the abrupt ringing void that followed the first devastating wave of an ambush. Lieutenant Clay Grinder Riley flattened himself against the cold, damp earth, his chest heaving with a desperate, oxygen-starved ache. The comms earpiece in his right ear was dead, a casualty of the initial mortar barrage that had scattered his four-man SEAL team, Groundhog, across the craggy, hostile ridge. It had been a textbook flanken trap, executed with a horrifying efficiency they hadn't seen in years. Now, only the low hiss of the wind and the distant, sporadic pop of small arms fire remained. Hope was an anchor that had just slipped its chain and sunk. Sergeant Marcus Finn, the team's point man, lay no more than 15 feet away, his arm at an unnatural angle. The medic, Daniel "Doc" Evans, was a ghost, having disappeared into the darkness to check on their youngest member, a rookie named Ben. Clay, a veteran of 2 tours, felt the cold dread that no amount of training could prepare you for, the certainty that you were alone, surrounded, and the next few minutes would be your last. The rescue bird wasn't coming. The radio had gone silent. The mission had ended, and now, so would their lives. The enemy, unseen but felt, was tightening the noose, their movement a subtle, crunching shuffle in the loose rock. Clay squeezed his M4, his knuckles white. This wasn't a firefight anymore, it was an execution. He closed his eyes for a second, not in prayer, but in resignation. He had given his life to this, and this was where he would leave it, in the cold, desolate dirt. And then he heard it. A faint, distant rumble, like an angry god clearing its throat. It was too low for a jet, too heavy for a transport. The sound grew, a deep, guttural vibration that seemed to shake the very ground he was on. High above the ridge, flying a full 1,000 feet below minimum safe altitude, Major Sarah Vixen Jenkins banked her A-10 Thunderbolt II, her cockpit a glowing, sterile bubble in the vast, inky night. The target was pinned. Her onboard sensors painted a clear picture of the situation, a stark, digital tragedy of 4 friendly signatures surrounded by a web of hostile contacts. "Vixen, we got nothing on that comms frequency, you're on your own," her command had repeated 3 times. But she could hear them, faintly, a garbled echo of their last desperate transmissions. And she saw the visual, the thermal residue of the mortar rounds, the telltale glow of enemy flash suppressors. She knew the mission was a bust, the team likely already gone. But the voice in her ear had given her a vector, and she had a duty to clear it. For Sarah, clearing the vector was more than a procedural task, it was a personal covenant. They called her Vixen as a joke, a jab at the flight school class she'd aced, the only woman to ever do so. Sly and sneaky, they'd called her, mocking. She had turned it into a call sign, and then a weapon. Down on the ground, a new crackle came to life in Clay's surviving earpiece. "Groundhog, this is Vixen. I have you in sight. Over." The voice was clear, calm, and unmistakably female. Clay glanced at Marcus, who just shook his head in disbelief, a bitter grimace on his face. "Vixen." "What in the hell?" Marcus started, but Clay cut him off. "Vixen, this is Groundhog Actual. We are pinned. Requesting immediate close air support. We got hostiles on all sides." There was a moment of silence. "Vixen, do you copy?" Clay's tone was urgent, bordering on frantic. He expected a fighter jet, a sleek F-16, something fast and modern. Not a Vixen. "Roger, Groundhog. I've been calling you boys for 10 minutes. Hang tight." The voice was so calm, it was almost infuriating. But then a new sound joined the low rumble, a high-pitched whine that grew into a deafening roar as the A-10 crested the ridge. The hulking, twin-engine silhouette blotted out the stars, its wings thick and straight, a menacing beast from another time. It wasn't fast. It was slow, ponderous, and absolutely terrifying. It was a close-quarters fighter, a beast designed to get down in the mud and bleed with the infantry. And for a moment, the enemy held its breath, confused by the strange, rattling hum. "That's not a fighter jet," whispered Ben, who had crawled back to Daniel's side, a look of awe on his face. "No," Daniel confirmed, a strange reverence in his voice. "That's a warthog." "Ready to clear the vector, Groundhog," Vixen's voice said. "Provide your coordinates for confirmation." Clay gave them, his voice steadier now. The air-to-ground missiles came first, 2 fiery streaks that slammed into the enemy's main command post, followed by a pair of precision-guided bombs that detonated with an earth-shaking thump. The shockwave rattled the bones in Clay's teeth, but his eyes were fixed on the A-10. Sarah Jenkins wasn't just a pilot. She was an avenging angel, and her brother, David, had been a SEAL. His call sign had been Fox, and he had died on a ridge very much like this one, waiting for a rescue that never came. He'd taught her everything he knew about ground operations, about the men on the dirt, the brothers in arms she was now sworn to protect. The mocking nickname of Vixen, his sister's call sign, had become a solemn tribute, a whispered prayer between them. He had been a hero, a legend, and she had become his legacy. She wasn't just doing her job, she was honoring him. Then came the sound that would forever be seared into the minds of the surviving SEALs. A deep, mechanical tearing, like 1,000 pieces of fabric being ripped at once. The GAU-8 Avenger, the A-10's main weapon, coughed to life, a roaring beast that spat fire. The rounds, a storm of 30mm depleted uranium, shredded the trees and the ground, walking a line of utter destruction toward the remaining enemy forces. The sound, a symphony of chaos and deliverance, was the most beautiful thing Clay had ever heard. The enemy scattered, a frantic, disorganized retreat in the face of the unyielding air power. The roar of the cannon subsided, replaced by the deep, throaty hum of the A-10 as it circled back. "Groundhog, vector is clear," Vixen said, her voice a little more breathless now. "I'm transmitting rescue coordinates and standing by for medevac." Clay looked at Marcus, at Daniel, at Ben. They were cut, bruised, and bleeding, but they were alive. Clay's hand went to his radio, his thumb finding the transmit button. "Vixen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. On behalf of Groundhog, you're a godsend." "Just doing my job, sir," she replied, but there was a crack of warmth in her voice now. A new light was breaking over the ridge, not of the sun, but of a rescue helicopter, its blades thumping a rhythmic, hopeful beat. The insignia on Sarah Jenkins's flight suit, a small embroidered fox, was a tribute to a fallen brother. But for the men on the ground, that patch was a legend, and a promise that hope, no matter how faded, could always be found in the sky.